everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. I'm Gary Mack, and joining me this week, as always, is the great Rich Baxter. Rich, welcome to this week's edition.
Thank you very much, Gary. And as we had my usual gremlins of the week here, I had to switch to my MacBook Pro at the last minute, updated the home system. So it might look a little different and sound a little different this week, but glad to be with you. How you feeling?
I'm a little under the weather, but the show must go on. So here we are, and Rich, we've got some baseball and lots of crazy activities going on. Your Phillies are really packing that lineup in there.
Yeah, we signed another star, so to speak, Nick Castellanos, and I wanted your opinion on him. What kind of player do you think he is? Is he a bona fide superstar? Is he a semi-star? I know they gave him about $100 million over 5 years, so put a little investment in him. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's a good deal. He's not a great outfielder, but he's a good clutch hitter, and I think that's what they're really looking for. They're looking to get that pop in the lineup, and I think it's a good deal for them. 5 years, 100. I don't know. I don't. I'm not sure of his age. I think he's 30 or 31. You know better than that, maybe. And so that might be stretching a little bit, but in this day and age, it could work out to be quite a good deal for the Phillies.
Yeah, I hadn't heard too much about him, of course, when he was with Detroit for many years. Like you said, he's 30 years old. He's about the same age as most of the Phillies. Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto just had a birthday yesterday. He's like 32, I think, already. But all the Phillies seem to be somewhat around the same age group. So I think that'll help them a little bit. And they certainly seem to have a star-packed power with Schwarber, however you pronounce his
Yeah.
name. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But they really had to stay up with the likes of the Mets, and you're right riding that wave. I know coming in the shore with all those superstars that the Mets seem to have, and
Yeah.
trying to keep up with Atlanta as well.
Well, I think they're doing that. I was as you said, they signed Schwarber for 4 years, 79 million, and I guess he'll be their DH. Would be my maybe he'll play an occasional left field or first base, but I'm a little confused though what the Phillies are trying to accomplish here because I think last year their their main problem was really relief pitching and pitching, and I don't know if they've done anything in that direction. And unless they're taking a different philosophy, they're just going to pound the ball and and hope that they get some decent pitching.
Yeah, they've had a very paper thin bullpen over the past couple years, maybe even 3 years, I'll call it. And they made some inroads to helping them solve that this year. Whether or not it'll be good enough is question. But yeah, they went all in on offense, and pitching is still going to be that question mark this year. So um, starting pitching, I don't know. You got Aaron Nola. He seemed to do well yesterday. He pitched for them. And this has been his Achilles heel for the past couple of years now. He had 5 strikeouts in like two innings, 2 to 3 innings, and he gives up 2 home runs. So the benefits of the strikeouts, and he seemed to be frustrated in the post-game interview. You know, he's like, I gave up 2 long balls. That's what he does in a game anymore. So you can have 5 strikeouts, but you're letting 2 long balls go, and that's been his Achilles heel. So we'll see if Zach Wheeler can pick it up, and Nola, and I'm sure over in New York there you're all gleeful with your starting rotation.
Well, we're very happy. I think you'd have to say the starting rotation with Degrom, of course, and Scherzer, and then picking up Bassett, and Walker and Carrasco. Hopefully they come back healthy, especially Carrasco, and Degrom hopefully can stay healthy for the whole season. So we're confident, but I think the Mets need another bat to stay up with the rest of the teams. But lots of big names fell, so if you will, off the free agent list this week. This just in. I don't even know if you had a chance to see it because you've been fighting those gremlins on the computer there. Trevor Story just signed, or is reported to have signed with the Red Sox for 6 years for 140 million. So the money keeps flowing. Carlos Correa, of course, signed with the Twins, and I was surprised at this. Rich, it's only 3 years at 105 million. We say only 3 years, but I thought he'd really go for a long-term deal. Like Lindor or Tatis or something along that line. But he signed for 3 years, and I think he has opt outs too. That's the new thing now. They all put in opt outs after the first or second year of the contract. So, but going down my list here, Jorge Soler, the MVP of the World Series, he left the Braves and went to the Marlins for 3 years, 36 million. Freddie Freeman left the Braves, and I don't know about you, Rich, but I'm really happy to get Freddie Freeman out of the division. It would have been nice to get him out of the league, but at least he's out of the division.
Yeah, to not face Freddie Freeman, what, 19 times like the NL East has to face one another. That's a big bonus for them. But we're facing somebody else in Olson, Matt Olson. He's
Yeah.
supposed to be like a younger clone of Freddie Freeman. So let's wait before we get that gleeful. And let's see what Matt Olson has in store for us in the NL East. But getting back to Correa real quick, interesting that he did sign that $105 million for 3 years. Big money by the year. He's only 27, so it kind of makes sense for him. He's still
Yeah.
on the tail end of his 20s. Maybe he'll test the free agency again. He's already got $100 million in his pocket and opt outs. Like you said, if somebody should happen along and, make some trades and want to trade him, he can make the move if he wants, get out of
Right.
Minnesota. And it was interesting to see that Minnesota made that deal with him for 3 short years.
Yeah, it really was, and Minnesota signed a couple of pitchers, I think, and they could threaten the White Sox in that division. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but they made a couple of moves that made them stronger, and you just never know the way things could shake out, especially in the AL Central. Let's see who else we got here, Rich. We talked about Nick Castellanos going to the Phillies. Anthony Rizzo returns to the Yankees, which I think is a good move for the Yankees. Interestingly enough, they were rumored to have were going to go after a shortstop. They didn't get one of the big shortstops. Um, they instead made a trade and brought in a shortstop. But they had an open first base position there, and they traded Luke Voigt and signed Anthony Rizzo. I think it's a good thing for both guys, both the team and Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah, Rizzo fits in well with the Yankees. Seems like seems like he's been a Yankee for a long time to me already, even though he really hasn't. But it was a short departure, and all of a sudden, that Cubs team that we remember that was so strong with Chris Bryant now going out to Colorado, and
Colorado, yeah.
that remains to be seen whether he can hit out there. I was watching MLB Network during the week, and he's struggled out in Colorado. Probably one of the worst stadiums that he's had to hit in. I think he only had two long balls there, as I remember seeing the graphic up on TV. But he's looking forward to starting out there in Colorado, and I guess all that extra money in his pocket feels good too.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah.
And the Oakland A's, I mean, they practically they're rebuilding. I mean, let's face it. You mentioned earlier about trading Matt Olson to the Braves. They also traded their third baseman Matt Chapman to Toronto for four prospects. So they picked up eight prospects in two trades. Don't know the level of prospects that they got, but they look like they're heading for a rebuild.
Yeah, it kind of seems like they've had a fire sale out there in Oakland, and they sort of built themselves out of nothing, and they made stars out of these guys. So
Yeah,
they can't afford them all, I guess. Out in Oakland is the bottom line, and they did well for years, just like the Marlins seemed to home grow a lot of their stars and then jettison them off to different areas in the MLB. But Oakland rebuilding again, and looking for a new home constantly. There's always stories up every year where they're looking to build down at the waterfront, or I think eventually they're going to end up going the way that the Oakland Raiders went and just go out to Vegas or something, because you have everything right there at the moment. Everything
yeah,
seems to be blossoming well out in Las Vegas. The way sports betting is intertwined with baseball now, it's just, I think it's an inevitable move for them to follow the Raiders out there to Vegas.
yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But you mentioned the Marlins, and they're kind of a strange organization. I mean, they had a little controversy. I don't know if we mentioned it in the last few weeks, but Derek Jeter quit there as president of the club. And then it came out that there was some controversy because they weren't apparently going in the direction that he was told they were going to go, and there seems to be some bad blood definitely there now. Um, we know they just added Soler, which was a big deal for them. Um, they have some good young players. Do you think they're going to be a threat in the NL East this year?
I don't think they're going to be a threat, but they always seem to surprise. When you count them out, is sort of when they say, "Oh, we brought up this guy or we brought up that guy," guys that we don't even know about right now,
Yeah,
uh, and they somehow end up bringing a good team to the field. So certainly on paper, they don't look like they're going to contend. I'm looking at the spot track uh, salaries in for 2022. I'm going to try to bring it up for our YouTube watchers here. And I don't know if it's going to do it. Let's see. And I'm struggling here because it's the first time I've used my MacBook Pro on a podcast here. But let's see what happens with the screen here if it shares it. I'm not sure if it's going to bring it up here. And no, it looks like I'm going into, I have to do some privacy settings within the MacBook Pro, which I can't do now on the
yeah.
podcast. But anyhow, scrolling up and down between the salaries, the Marlins are near the bottom at 67 million, 67.7 million. Team payroll number 26 out of 30. And believe it or not, Gary, the woeful Baltimore Orioles, since I'm looking on this page here, about last in the MLB with spending.
Wow. And there's been a lot of complaints about their owner as well. So, maybe the new agreement will force him to spend a little bit more money. And I know they were trying to build from within, and it wasn't working so well. But hopefully, remember how powerful Baltimore Orioles always used to be, and You hate to see a traditional team like that be ground into the mud so much, you know. But they've done it to themselves, really. And Rich, I think we're going to see some interesting races because there's been a lot of players added and moved. And you know, you look at the National League, for instance, and I mean, the Dodgers are still a team to beat there. You know, they didn't weaken themselves that much. They lost a couple of guys, but you know, they picked up Freeman. That's a big pickup for them. Um,
Huge.
you know that allows Muncy to play second more consistently, or Lux, and they've got a overabundance of depth out there. And you know, they picked up Kershaw. Okay, Kershaw is not the Kershaw of 5 years ago, but he's still not bad. You know, they did lose Kenley Jansen. He signed with the Red Sox, I believe it was. I didn't have that in my notes, but I believe he signed with the Red Sox couple 2 days ago or something like that. And so you know that could hurt them, even though he had slipped a little bit the last couple of years. Um, they're still a team to beat in the National League, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, and they've kept their salary spending up even beyond last year. They're up to $270 million this year, Gary. Your Mets are right behind them at almost $250 million, or like a dollar, about $900,000 short of $250 million are the Mets this year. So they've really splashed it out, eclipsed the Yankees now for number two on the list by about 15 million, actually, right? As not sure if Rizzo's salary is tacked onto this yet, but believe it or not, next behind them in fourth place, the San Diego Padres, unlikely team to be spending a lot of money since they really haven't went to many places.
Well, they put together a good young team, and now they're moving in some other players. Unfortunately, they're going to be off to a rough start because they lost their star, Fernando Tatis Jr., and some little bit of a controversy there. You know, it's been reported that they are not. He broke his wrist in the offseason. It came out that he did it in a motorcycle accident, and I think they have every right to investigate whether or not they can void his huge contract. But I've read that they're not, according to sources, they're not going to do that because they don't want to tick him off in the first place, which is understandable. Um, and they want to keep a good, you know, rapport with him, their star. And um, you know, it's interesting. You know, apparently he's told them he will not ride a motorcycle again, and all of that kind of stuff. So we'll see what happens if it ever happens again. They'll void the contract, but they're going to start the season without him, and that could put you know a little bit of a hurt in them. Um, they had signed Eric Hosmer a few years ago as one of the big free agents when they started moving in that direction. He will now platoon with Luke Voigt that they got from the Yankees. So um, they've got a pretty good. They've got a terrific manager. They've got a good nucleus, a good young team, and we'll wait and see what happens there. But they're almost setting themselves up to be a win now or a win in a couple of seasons team.
Yeah. Yeah. Back to Tatis. He wasn't really forthcoming with the Padres. He said that his wrist had been bothering him for a couple of weeks. And, prior to that, of course, it was the lockout. So the teams couldn't
Right.
communicate with the players. But as you said, back in early December, Tatis fell off a motorcycle in his native Dominican Republic. He's lucky that's all he ended up with. I don't know how these guys are pretty well in their 20s. They don't think, they're multi-million
Yeah,
dollar ball players, but they're riding on the back of a motorcycle in a place like
yeah,
Dominican Republic. I mean, it just seems like stupidity.
yeah. Well, you know, they, Rich, at that age, you think you're gonna go on forever. Nothing can happen to you.
That's true. But Tatis not very forthcoming with the Padres, of course, and he'll be sitting out for a good long time. And he's one of the best in the game, as you said, Gary. His impact being lost to the Padres means a lot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, if anything, with the team pursuing that as it pertains to a motorcycle accident. I'm sure that probably doesn't fall within his contract. I'm sure they have that in his contract that he doesn't do that. But now it's done, so you can't do nothing about it.
Yeah, that's it. And it does make the West even more interesting, or maybe less interesting. Because maybe instead of being a three-team race, it locks it down to a two-team between the Giants and the Dodgers. And the Giants didn't seem. I mean, they won 107 or 109 game, whatever it was last year. But they don't seem to have done that much. I mean, they've lost Bryant, and they didn't add too much. But we'll see. It's hard to argue when you win 100 plus games,
Yeah,
and we'll see. But I still think the Dodgers got to be considered the top dog in the National League. They're the team to beat.
the Giants may have had that chemistry, quote unquote, that goes to make up a winning ball club. A lot of the time, it's not how many superstars you have on the team, the big names, this, that, and the other, marquee multi-million dollar players. It's chemistry. It's, do you work well with one another? I guess you have to be on ground level to see which teams work best together. But the Phillies have had a number of different players that earn in the 20 of millions of dollars per year, and they're still an average ball club. They're not, maybe they don't have that chemistry that it takes to make up a winning ball club. And it seemed like last year the Giants had that.
Yeah, and I think the concern that the Giants have to have is that the guys that had really good years, that wasn't that's the norm. That's not, they all didn't have career years at the same year, and now when this year comes, they're gonna slip down a little bit, because that could be a disaster for them. But that's why we play the games. We'll find out as they go along, and uh, you know we'll have to see. And the American League, same kind of thing. I mean, it's going to be very interesting with Houston losing Correa. That kind of opens up that uh, that race there. Texas made a few moves, so they're going to be a lot stronger. The Angels made a couple of moves, though I still think they need pitching. Um, so it could make it a little more interesting out west. I think Oakland's going to be out of it this year, definitely, with the subtractions that they made. So I think that'll be interesting. The Central will be interesting. We spoke about that a little bit later, a little earlier with the moves that the Twins have made. So I think the Twins will be in there, maybe pushing the White Sox. The Tigers should be a little bit better. So uh, we'll see how that goes. And in the East is always competitive between the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Rays. And we'll see how that goes. And again, I think what's going to be interesting in the National League is how the DH affects everything.
Yeah. And specifically in the New York area, anybody from outside New York may not know this, but it's very similar to Canada. If you don't have vaccination, if you're not vaccinated, you can't play. you're not going
Yeah.
to be able to play on the field this year. So if you see your team going to New York and there's certain guys not playing the whole series, I think that's going to be a telltale sign that, hey, they never got vaccinated. It's very serious now. So these teams
We're
are
gonna have
getting,
a bunch of our own players that won't be able to play. You know, it's happened all year. It's a stupid rule in New York City that they have. Uh, Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets has not played in a home game. He can't play in New York City. Now, here's the stupid part about the law: he can go to the game,
uh
but he can't play. I
so
I, I don't I
he
don't
can be
understand.
right in the
He can
stadium, but he
he can
can't
be
play.
in the stadium watching the game, but he can't play. And and they say the same thing unless they change it within the next few weeks. This is going to be the same thing, and in some of the in Canada when they go to play Toronto, I don't know. I think it's the same kind of deal. So it'll be interesting unless the country Canada changes it and New York City changes their rules. Um, I don't know at this point what the point is. If he can go to the stadium, what's the difference?
Yeah.
And he can play on the road, so he's in the locker room with these guys. It's not like you're trying to keep a bubble. You know, he's in that. He's in the. He practices. He can do everything, but he can't play a game in New York City. It's the most ludicrous thing I ever heard of, and it's I don't know, it's stupid, and
Yeah.
and like you said, we could have Mets and Yankee players, and you're gonna like I said I did a Mets musings the other day, and I said, if you don't see Jacob DeGrom pitching in New York, you're gonna know he was not vaccinated, or whoever. I just use that as an example, or somebody if Pete Alonso isn't playing first base, or somebody else isn't playing left field or second base. You're gonna know that they didn't get vaccinated. So, and the Mets were low on the vaccination list. They did not. I think MLB wanted 85%. They did not hit that, and so you could see a couple of guys, and I don't know. It's stupid.
Yeah, I guess we're going to have to wait till opening day there to see. And what if half the team isn't vaccinated? Like, I don't know if a player has held out this long. Are they going to hold out for long after this, or will this be something that makes them get the vaccination? It'll be interesting to see. But and another interesting part is it seems to be only Canada and New York. Like,
Yeah,
why?
it's New York.
You have to ask why.
Right. And then when they say vaccinated, does that mean one shot? Does that mean four shots? I mean, can you play if you get your first shot, or do you have to wait until you're fully vaccinated? I mean, these are all questions that nobody seems to answer, and it's gonna wreak havoc. I'm gonna tell you that it's gonna be fascinating. But we do have baseball, and in fact, you've probably watched some of the games already. Your
Yes.
Phillies were on MLB, I think, yesterday,
Yep.
and you getting a little local. We're getting one today. The Mets will be on today at 1 o'clock. So I'm excited to watch. I was watching a little last night of the replay of the Pirates and the Tigers, and they showed the defense. They showed the defense, and I couldn't. The Pirates, I couldn't tell anybody. I didn't know anybody. Never heard of anybody. One guy, two, Hayes, the third baseman, and Gamel, one of the outfielders. But the rest of these guys, I was like, who are these people?
That's true. And, there's a good reason for that. They're 29th in the payroll, just above the
Well,
Baltimore
it's
Orioles, are $35 million for the whole team combined
yeah, but
this
they
year.
don't. I
So,
mean, they're a small market, and I have a soft spot for Pittsburgh. I went up to school. I went to school up around that area, and so I have a soft spot for Pittsburgh, and I root for the Steelers, and I root for the Pirates, except when they're playing the Mets, of course. And I'd like to see them do better, but it's a football town, and they don't draw as well. They probably got the best stadium in baseball, according to a lot of people that I know have told me. Um, but they it's a hard nut to crack there. They love their team, but they it's a hard thing to say.
yeah.
It is really a football town, so it's very tough. It's tough to beat the nut. I mean, when you have high school football games on TV, that tells you, how much. And basketball, they had. I can remember. I think they still have it. They had a high school tournament that would be like a weekend. I think it was, and it was just broadcast from like 8 in the morning until like midnight, or when the last game was played. It would be on this. They just broadcast every game, and because I can remember, I had a friend that was from Pittsburgh, and we went up one weekend when that particular weekend, and all we did was sit in a chair, and we were much younger. I was in college, so we had some adult beverages, and watch wall to wall high school basketball. But this is, that's the kind of town it is, and so between that, the high school and the college football and basketball, it's just a tough town. And of course, they love their Steelers, and the Steelers sell out all the time. But Pirates are kind of, down a little bit though. Um, could not see a baseball league not having a Pittsburgh Pirates team.
Yeah. Interesting. Might be a long season for the Pirates. Let's run down the last five payrolls in the MLB since we did the top ones. Uh, Fifth from the bottom, the Marlins, 67.7 million. Oakland Athletics at 41.5 million, roughly. The Guardians, Cleveland Guardians at 35.45 million.
Mm.
Then the Pirates at 35.25 million. And last, the Baltimore Orioles at a paltry $30 million, 316.
Wow.
So,
Seems kind of ridiculous when you think about it, but that's why they can't compete against somebody that's paying 270 million and got all the superstars there. So,
yeah. So it'll be
uh,
interesting to monitor those seasons, especially when, sports betting is involved. If you lose 100 games, that's a lot of games to lose in a year.
it is. It is. It
But
certainly is. And what do they say? You win a third of your games, you lose a third of your game. It's the other third that really decides. What the winners from the losers. So, but it's a long season when you lose that many games. Oh boy,
yeah,
it's I played on some bad teams and nothing to this length, but I mean, when you're losing every week and you see no sign of winning, it is demoralizing.
yeah, sure. Well, we'll keep an eye on that as the season goes by. And I took advantage of an offer from the Phillies. I hadn't had tickets in years. Season partial season ticket wise, but
Uh-huh.
they put an offer up I couldn't refuse this
Good
past
for
week.
you.
I was checking it out, and what the deal is this: you're going to get 80 home games
Wow.
for $50 a month subscription, and it's
Okay.
standing room only.
Okay.
Now that's the rub. I mean, but you could go to as many games if you lived right there near the stadium. You could go to all 80 games for $50 a month, standing room only. I think that's a bargain. As it turns out, I'll only be able to go to a couple games a month due to the fact that I don't live very close to there and that I work full time. But I thought to myself, yeah, let me chip in a little bit, a little Nick Castellanos money or, a little 50 bucks a month into the kitty. Um, and I'm back, but
Now,
it
do
was,
you pay that monthly or is it?
yeah. And that's the other great thing about this. It's monthly and you can opt out at any time. Say in June, you've been to 4 games and the scheduling isn't right for you or whatever, you can opt out and then that's it. You don't they probably won't extend this offer for very long, I wouldn't imagine. But if you can get into it now and stay the season, it's $50 a month every month on the 20th. I think they said they debit your account and you can go month to month or you can go right on through the whole season. So I think
Yeah.
that's a viable option for me. I don't
Well,
particularly like to sit at Citizens Bank Park unless I'm in like the upper level, which is a more comfortable level, so to speak, because you're so close to one another.
yeah, yeah. Well, the interesting thing about that as well is that if it's 6 months, it's $300, and with the cost of tickets, if you can go to what 12 games or something, or 10 games. I mean, I don't know how much the ticket prices are going. Yes, you're standing, but you know what? You work full time, but you have a day off during the week sometimes, correct?
Yeah.
If there's an afternoon game, it's not that crowded. You go, that's the games to go to, and you can sit, you can walk around, you can sit somewhere. There's always an empty seat you can sit down in. I mean, let's be honest, unless it's something
And you
special.
can you can even buy a seat. That's the other part of this. It's the pass is hooked up to your MLB account, which that's how you get into the ballpark. They don't give you a ticket. It's on your phone. So you go in
Yeah, yeah,
and they have a certain amount of time where they'll offer you a seat if they have seats available, which they probably will. And it might not be a desirable seat, but yeah, if you want to pay to sit down, you could upgrade that seat. Say you just wanted to hang around an hour or two, watch what's going on, and then leave. You could do that as well. So, a lot of options with that. I love this pass concept.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just miss the old days with the when they used to design tickets and you had a memento there.
Yeah.
You know, now you go to a World Series or something and you don't have anything. I mean,
Yeah.
somewhere I have my ticket from 1986.
Yep.
And it just doesn't seem the same. So
I was just going to say, I have my ticket box here. I bought a special box. It has like all the teams on the outside for that specific purpose to save mementos and, over the
right,
years. So
right.
I still have a ton of Phillies tickets, and you're right. They're keepsakes. Every now and again you might open them up and say, "Yeah, I remember this game well," or whatever. But yeah, now in the digital age, it's like flush it down the toilet almost of digital garbage, and you're changing your
Yeah,
phones every
yeah.
couple
Well,
years. All that stuff
and
goes away quick.
there's nothing even to print out either. It's just a barcode or something. I
Yeah. Now
don't know.
these
Maybe
days
if
they'll sell NFT to you for a couple $1,000.
yeah, it's crazy. at least as we said, we have. I would rather talk about these sort of things than talk about a lockout. So at least we've got baseball to talk about, and I think pretty much most of the big names are signed now, and I think teams are going to settle in. We'll probably see some more small deals, though. Michael Conforto is still out there. Uh, Billy Epler and Buck Showalter and Steve Cohen. So maybe you want to ink him to a contract to bring him back home to New York. He's gonna hit for you, believe me. Trust me when I tell you this.
They can't
Is he?
afford them though, Gary. They're up to
Oh
250
yeah, they
million.
get. Yeah, that's nothing. Another 20, 25 mil. Nothing, nothing at all. He's got
All
Uncle Stevie's got it.
right.
He's a
All right.
billionaire. He's got plenty of dough.
I'll have to make a couple more stock trades to afford him.
You get rid of somebody.
Yeah, and I constantly see it in the Mets Twitter feed. All the fans, yeah, get Conforto, go, grab him up, this, that, and the
Go
other.
for
But
it.
yeah,
Get him now. He's gonna hit. I believe what happened to him last year was they screwed him up with the coaches. They changed hitting coaches in midstream. They started feeding them all these analytics, all these videos, and you could see a lot of these guys just got like, whoa, their head exploded with stuff. And I think that was the big part of it. And I think if you just take this kid and sit him down and tell him, hit the way you did in Brooklyn. Just hit the way you did in Brooklyn when you came up. I saw him in the minors. This kid can hit, but you just gotta let him hit. They want him to hit home runs. They want him to hit the line drives. Then he got all confused. Plus he had a shoulder injury. Then he had COVID. Everybody forgets that last year. And he still hit 14 homers. I mean, it's not great, but he hit 30 something the year before. So, um, coming off of an injury, coming off of COVID, and we don't know how. They never tell you how bad or how mild these guys had COVID when they got it. He could have had a bad case. Who knows? But anyway,
that's true.
they should sign him, and they better act quick because I think the Blue Jays are interested. So, um, Blue Jays are gonna have a bunch of Mets and A's up there. It seems. I don't know. They've,
Yeah, they're assembling quite a powerhouse team up there,
yes,
and we'll have to see who plays in Canada. That role will affect those guys
yeah,
as
that's
well.
true. That's true too. So,
Uh,
very
Cubs,
interesting.
the Cubbies did end up signing that Japanese superstar Seiya Suzuki, the Hiroshima star, former. And a funny story happened just the other day. Probably heard it by now. He picked number 27, and then when asked why he wanted number 27, and he said, "I love Mike Trout," in Japanese. Yeah. So, and Mike Trout was flattered. He says he can't wait to meet Seiya Suzuki. So, as much as we say baseball is, over dollars and cents, we have quotes like that, and it brings us all back down to earth.
Yes, it does. And speaking of Mike Trout, hopefully he'll have a healthy year with Otani out there in California, and because baseball needs these guys, they need these kind of players. They need the big superstars, and Trout's kind of slipped a level as far as superstardom. The last couple of years with between the short season and COVID and baseball slipping a little. And yesterday and last season, I should say, Otani really, kind of superseded him as the Angels guy, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's good for him to be in the out of the limelight a little bit. He's still Mike Trout, so Let's hope for a good, big, healthy year from him. And that's all I got for this week, Rich. How about you?
Yeah, and Joe Madden out there with the Angels as well, as you said, only could be good for baseball if they can get far into the playoffs this year. And we'll have some extra teams in this year. So it'll be a little more
Yeah.
interesting for some market teams that have just been on that bubble. Maybe you'll see them this year in the playoffs and they'll be able to go forward because, as we know, it's how you're playing at the time. You just get into those playoffs. And if you can parlay something and make it happen, and you're going to go far into the playoffs, maybe. So, yeah,
Yeah.
interesting time. And Gary, I'm so glad you were able to do the show today. I know you weren't feeling too well. I was on
Made
vacation
it.
all week. I was going to go up to the Hall of Fame, but with the price of gas and all, I said, nah, I'm going to pass. I'm just going to, take it easy and view it from afar, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing, and the prices of gas. I'm lucky enough to be retired, and I don't really go anywhere. Due to specific reasons, we don't really go out. Haven't gone out anywhere really in 2 years. I do go out of my house. I'm not I actually went to Best Buy the other day. I had to get a new vacuum. The vacuum broke down, but I mean, I'm not. We're not going out like we used to, and I kind of miss some of the stuff we used to do, the wife and I. But maybe we're in that age group. We're both a little overweight, and so we're right in that COVID thing there, and so
Yeah. Hey,
just
one
trying to be
last story
careful.
before we
Okay.
wrap it up for this week. The Phillies yesterday played, as you said, a nationally broadcast game. Tom McCarthy was doing the game, and all of a sudden,
Oh.
a foul ball went flying up, and I was listening to it here at home and heard Ruben Amaro Jr., who's doing some color commentary for them this year, yell, "Watch out," to Tom McCarthy, and it ended up hitting him right on the chest as he was replying to a comment online, which he does. I mean, he'll reply to Twitter comments during a game and all sometimes, which is hard to do. But yeah, Tom took it right in the chest. Afterwards, he said, "I hardly felt it," but
Yeah,
interesting.
he was okay, and I guess Ruben shows why he's in the booth now and not
On the
uh,
field.
on the field. He didn't
Yeah.
move quick enough for a second baseman. I'll tell you that much.
Been in mothballs too long.
That's right. There you go. Well,
Thanks
I
for
guess that's gonna
listening.
that's
Yeah.
gonna wrap it up for this week, right, Rich?
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back with our stats next week. We'll be back with asking you to sponsor us on all the anchor.fm/baseball talk radio sites. So look forward to that. And we'll be that much closer to the start of the season. A lot more baseball to talk about with you. Thanks for tuning into this edition.